Lube on ESPN 1320.
Trade ideas, baby. Let's go. It's our favorite thing. Sorry if that was super loud. We love a trade idea.
We do.
Brian Windhorst says the NBA offseason is going to ramp up right away. NBA draft. Right around the draft.
Yeah.
So when stuff is going to hit the fan. Going to see a lot of player movement. I think there's also teams, maybe it's the Jazz, just picking a team with some good veterans who they could probably move, are going to try really hard to maybe move up because there's some blue chip talent at the top of the draft. And they're 6th, 5th, 6th. Maybe try and package that pick with something else to move up.
Yeah, I could see that. I also I think with just the way this draft is, like it's super top heavy. But then there's a lot of question marks from then on after you get past like the top 5.
Right.
Like a lot of wide open draft. Like if someone were to take somebody at 8 or 20, there isn't a huge big difference between, right?
Yeah.
I don't know this is a draft that I would get back into. Again, I had someone tell me, like, if you think this is like a 16 player draft, like, and you're going to move back into this draft, you better, if you're, let's say you're going to move to the top 10, there better be 10 guys that you're in love with.
Yeah.
Like straight up, there better be 10 players that you're in love with, because if not, why'd you move in? Why'd you move into that spot? Like, it doesn't make any sense to get to a spot. And if you get to 10 and you realize that there's 5 players that you like at number 10, you probably should have traded for number 13 or number 14 or number 15. Like, that's like, this isn't a draft that I think that anyone is going into and saying, okay, look, we're going to reset all of our depth or anything like that.
Well, it's like what we talked about with the 49ers picking 11th in this year's NFL draft.
Yeah.
They could pick 11th and trade back to 20 and get probably a similar caliber player.
Well, and that's
very, very similar here.
That's why you take a flyer at 11 on a guy that has like unlimited potential, but hasn't really delivered yet, because at least you're banking on upside. And so for the Kings, they can't really bank on, they should be a team who's banking on upside, but because of the age of your team and everything else, I would expect the Kings to be a much bigger player on July 1st than they are like on draft night.
Why?
Because once you get to July 1st, you have access to your 2026 pick, right? So you can't trade that pick until you can trade that. You can have a deal set up that will trade that pick, but you get your 2032
You can agree
pick.
to terms of a deal.
Yeah.
But can't execute the trade until July 1.
Yeah. So like the day of the draft, they can't trade their 2026 first round pick because of the stepping rule, and they already have their 2025 gone. Right. But you get 5-6 days later and you hit to July 1st, that trade is, once a draft happens, it's over. The 2025 pick is gone. It's no longer on your books. You can now trade your 2026 pick, but you have to wait until the reset of the calendar year. So I would not be surprised if the Kings are more in the big trade market around that time than they are on draft day, unless you got some other deal that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Right.
So there's a report out right now. I want to get to your trade ideas, because you got a 2-part trade that's really fun here, and I want to get to it. But there's also this report that came out this morning from Grant Afseth at RG Media.
Yeah.
And he reported that Darius Garland has drawn trade interest from the Kings. And Trae Young has also drawn trade interest from the Kings. I want to put a pin in the Trae Young thing for a second.
Okay.
We talked a lot about Darius Garland yesterday.
We did.
This seems like one of those things where my knee-jerk reaction to this was, of course they're interested. They should be interested in every good point guard.
Yeah. You should have a giant whiteboard with tiers of point guards and who's obtainable and who's not. Straight up, you should have like it all mapped out. Like, if you can get player XYZ, with this trade. Yeah.
The thing I'm interested in, because it doesn't shock me that the Kings are like, yeah, hey, we talk about Trae Young, LaMelo Ball, John Morant. Those are the three. But then we brought up Andrew Nembhard.
Mm-hmm.
See, Derek White, Drew Holiday. Like, there's all these. Darius Garland should 100% be on that list. Whether the Cavs want to trade him or not, don't know. But my interest is more, is he just on the list? Or is he a player that the Kings have circled and, okay, hey, here's this list of 10 names. We're going to underline the 3 that we're going to overpay for. We're going to bend over backward. We need to get Darius Garland. We think he is the key piece to build around moving forward. And if that's true, if that's the case, are they willing to involve Keegan Murray in that deal? Are they willing to involve several first-round picks in that deal? Because if they're not, then they might wind up disappointed in the quality of player they're going to go get.
Well, yeah, I think here's the difficult thing. Like, if you have a whole list of players, you're not just going to randomly grab a player off the list, call that team and say, can I get that player?
Sure. Right.
And then I'm just going to do that deal.
Yeah.
No. So I think the way that this was written from the article that were from RG Sports, whatever it is.
RG Media. RG.org.
Okay.
It's the website.
The way that, like, if I'm reading this correctly, though, they say the Kings have interest in Garland, but also on top of that, Trae Young came up in recent talks, and while Sacramento has interest in the Kings, multiple sources told RG that the Atlanta Hawks have spoken with the Kings on a potential framework centered around Trae Young in recent weeks.
Oh,
however, those trades have since stalled. So this is why I'm bringing this up right now in this discussion. It makes sense that you have on your board what the framework of a Trae Young trade looks like, what the framework of a Darius Garland trade looks like, what a possible LaMelo Ball trade looks like. Have conversations, build out, and then you look at the 3 or 4 or 5 deals that are sitting there that you think you can get done or that you might be able to get done. And then you aggressively attack whichever one you think is right. And then if that one doesn't work out, you might go to the next one. So either way, you need to build out framework for these trades in advance and start building something that makes a lot of sense, like now. So then when it is time to go, you don't want to get swooped. You don't want to have some other team come in and offer Russell Westbrook for Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell instead of the deal that you had for Buddy Hield.
Oof.
Yeah, so you got to get all your ducks in a row. You need to touch base. You need to build out frameworks of a trade, what a potential trade would look like with each individual team, and then choose the logical step for your franchise. Gauging age, gauging production, gauging position, gauging whether or not they're a two-way player, they're just an offensive player, whether a pass first or a score first point guard, like all of these things.
And if you acquire that player, are there other dominoes that fall where if you are acquiring Trae Young,
yep,
that, man, there's a kind of specific type of player that you're going to need to put alongside him, or players that you're going to need to put alongside him.
No, totally.
Do we have those moves in place? Yeah, and that's where I was talking about earlier when we say that Brian Windhorst said that the offseason is going to get moving quickly. That's where, like, man, you are not going to be able to afford to fall behind because it's not one move that needs to happen.
Yeah, especially with Sacramento. I mean, if I'm Sacramento, and you're going to play in the pool of like where all the sharks are, right? You're looking for a frontline NBA starting point guard. If that's your main objective, you're looking at $40 to $50 million player.
Yeah,
and you either have 2 of those moves in you, or you have 1 of those moves, or you might have 3, depending on how many of the players you want to give up. So, for me, like my trade that I'm proposing is pretty specific. Like, I don't love Trae Young as like an end all be all player. But when I factor in contract, I factor in age, and I factor in the fact that he is both a true point guard and a scoring point guard. I think I like him as a player, and I also think that there's a way in which you can put him alongside somebody that makes everyone better. Like, you know what I mean? So like but what I can't have is I can't have a Trae Young and Zach LaVine backcourt that gives up 140 points a night and Domantas Sabonis is in foul trouble every single game.
Yeah.
So my proposed trade would be Zach LaVine, the Spurs pick in 2027 and one other lottery protected pick from the Kings for Trae Young. And it's a straight salary swap. And people go, well, why would the Hawks do that?
It's a great question.
And the answer is the Hawks are looking to reset around a younger roster with Rishache and Jalen Johnson and that group. Capella's on his way out the door. They've got they got rid of Bogdanovich during the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dyson Daniels is part of their future. And Trae Young is looking for an extension right now. And that extension is going to be 200 and something million bucks. He's owed basically the same exact money that Zach LaVine is. He's at 46 million and 48 million, 48.5. It's within like 500 grand of the Zach LaVine contract.
Mm-hmm.
So the player swap, the money works to swap out player for player. And so they're not taking on any additional money. They're not taking on any additional years of Zach LaVine. The contracts with Trae Young line up perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're doing is you're swapping out a player, giving Dyson Daniels someone new to play with and handing the team to him and saying, okay, you're our guy now. And we're going to have a really good scoring wingman next to you. And then at the same time, you're collecting a couple of first-round picks in order to continue the build that you're trying to accomplish. So that's why they would do that. And as far as the Kings, like, look, I think Trae Young in Sacramento does not work at all next to LaVine, but I think Trae Young in Sacramento works perfectly fine next to a guy like Keon Ellis in the starting backcourt.
Mm-hmm.
And then having a guy like Malik Monk come off the bench and give you something, having Devin Carter still part of that. Like, I think that there's a way that you can create something with that backcourt that's different than what you currently have.
So I like this idea very much. And if you're able to get out of Zach LaVine's contract and acquire a star level point guard in the process, that is a slam dunk. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Like, that is something you have to do. If you're building around Trae Young, though, because he's 27 at the start of next year.
Okay.
Which means this is now your new window.
Yep.
This is not a rebuild. This is a going for it now with Trae Young. There is a very specific type of build that now needs to continue.
I totally agree.
Where there has to be an influx. And I think Scott Perry recognizes there has to be that influx of size and athleticism that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And what is so appealing about Trae Young to me is not the scoring. He's going to give you 20 plus a night. He averaged 24.2. He's averaging 25.3 for his career, 24.2 last season. It's not only the assist numbers. He averaged 11.6 assists a game last year, but it's the way he play makes that sets up his teammates. And I think Trae Young elevates the players around him offensively. I think he makes players better. Not where, wow, the Hawks have been contending for titles. That's not the case. But I think the quality of player you need offensively comes down a little bit, where you can go get a very defensive-minded, hustle, grit type of player.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get open. They're going to stand in the corner. They're going to get open threes off of Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to break down a defense. He's going to touch the paint, and he is going to make the right pass to the open shooter. And now maybe that 3-point shooter is 33%, but man, he's 38% from the corner because that is just a wide open look. And that's something that you want to generate. And that's something that I think can help carry the Kings offense around Trae Young. But we'll continue talking about this. We got to step aside on the radio side. We'll keep talking about this because there's a second part of this that goes along with it. This is not a one-part trade. There's a two-part trade. The second part of that trade is going to go toward what we're talking about right now with adding more size and athleticism. We'll get to that next. He's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. That's Joe Brazil. We're the Insider, sponsored by Jiffy Lube.